Now, we begin. And indeed, once again, greetings unto you, beloved and holy friends. As always, I come forth to abide with you because you have asked. As always, I come forth to abide with you because in truth there is nowhere else that I could be. For where you are, I am, and where I am, you are. We abide then as the one mind, birthed from the very heart of Abba, or God. There is nothing outside of us, and from within there is nothing hidden. Though the dimensions of creation be infinite, they abide within the mind or the field of consciousness that we share as one. Because this is true, and I assure you that it is, there is indeed only one task which must be accomplished, one realization that must be realized, one reality to be expressed and lived. And that simple truth is that there is only one, that there is only heaven, that there is only love, that there is only the perfect peace that passes all understanding, that keeps indeed your hearts in mind. For your heart or your soul, that which is all that you have experienced throughout the multitude of your lifetimes upon this tiny planet, all of the experiences that you have garnered since before the beginning of time, throughout all of the multitude of dimensions, the soul or the heart resides within the mind of God, within the mind of Christ, for these are one and the same. Therefore, beloved friends, know always that the only truth that must be lived as you enter into the firm commitment of choice to abiding in the way of knowing is simply that there is only one thing. You are that one. Your brother and your sister is that one. And though bodies come and go, though time seems to arise and pass away, though the dance of relationship, of career, of weather patterns seems to come and go, it is only the unenlightened mind that looks for great signs in these things. In truth, within the field of your soul, within all of the field of experiences that you call to yourself, the same gift is being offered. The gift offered to you, that by grace you might decide to see that the world of ever-changing form means nothing. The world means nothing. It does not, nor has it ever existed, except in the perceptions conjured up within the field of mind that seems to be particularly related to your soul. Now, even that is a bit of an illusion. But the point is simply this. In the way of knowing, there is a quiet decision to accept the truth that is true always, to surrender, to open the palms of the hands and to release the tight grip upon the value, the meaning, and the rightness of the perceptions you have made to veil reality. You are that reality. All things are that reality. The forms that the physical eyes show you arise and pass away, yet in each moment mind remains perfectly clear, perfectly one. Only the spell of the mind that believes itself to be the body creates suffering, creates doubt, creates illusion. Wherever you are then in this very moment, you can only be where in truth I am. Wherever I seem to be in this moment, I can only be where you are. For indeed, in the way of knowing, what must come to be released is the mistaken perception that there is or has ever been a separate I that is localized where the body-mind is. To release this illusion is to see that all things are simply one thing. Automobiles, plants, trees, clouds, thoughts arising and passing away. They appear in different forms, but they are but one thing. Looking through such an enlightened mind, because it no longer sees the veil of the false I, standing between itself as a filter and its recognition of its union with, its identity with, all things arising and passing away, such a mind looks out upon a transfigured world, a world in which the veil has been lifted, and that mind sees only itself. It sees that the very things it had been judging as imperfect, as it looked out upon the world, that it had been judging through fear, that it had been judging through self-doubt, those very things of themselves are perfect, that they are indeed the kingdom of heaven. This is why the distance between where you are and where I am is indeed a distance that cannot be measured. For in reality, there is no gap. In reality, separation does not exist. In reality, your fall from grace and your movement into unenlightenment itself has been but an illusion. The very life you have been living is absolutely perfect. The life you are living now is absolutely perfect. And it hasn't anything at all to do with where the body-mind goes. It has nothing to do with whether you watch a movie or read a book, whether you make money or do not, whether the body-mind lives or dies. The life you have been living is the life of awareness, of consciousness, of perfect freedom to create whatever perception you choose to hold. You are free then in all moments to see that what has been arising as the life of your very self is the life and mind of God. A mind so awakened looks out and sees that there are no problems. Such a mind looks out upon the world and sees no reason to change it. For it is now looking at a world that has already been healed, already been transfigured, already through alchemical fires, if you will, been purified and made whole again. For in reality it sees that that wholeness was never once lost. The dream of separation occurs within a space of mind that is nowhere, that holds no value and no purpose. Fear then has no power over you. Death has no power over you. You abide then in the only place ever created for you. You are not localized to the body or the particular personality that you have associated with as your I. That in itself is part of the spell or the drama or the dream of separation. In the way of knowing, there is a simple and quiet decision to behold that as the body-mind plays itself out, as the coming and going of all forms around you and within you, as your own unique perceptual field changes and dances and ebbs and flows, and we'll get to why it does that in just a moment, as all of these things that seem to be within you in your private world, and that's a bit of a misnomer, and in your external world that you think is yours and not someone else's, all of these things are innocent, harmless, they hold no power, and there is no reality in them. And yet they are reality itself when seen through eyes that are not identified with the false I, with the localized sense of identity. Even the body-mind that you once called yourself is merely seen to arise and pass away in the vast expanse of your true self, the self that is shared by all beings in all dimensions, always. It was this understanding that allowed me to simply choose to give myself over to what was called the crucifixion. An enlightened consciousness knows that loss is impossible. An enlightened consciousness knows that gain is also impossible. And yet an enlightened consciousness, resting in the certainty of perfect knowing, merely abides in reality. That means there is no resistance to the coming and going of the body, no resistance to the grand display of energies that make up what you call your world. Governments rise and fall. A new model automobile is unveiled to the flash of 1,000 camera bulbs. Some minds take it as being a very serious thing, some don't even notice, and all of it is you. All of it is arising in the vast expanse of the perfectly free mind that belongs to no one, and yet in which all ones arise. An enlightened mind, then, whether it is experiencing temporarily in the body-mind sadness, joy, anger, guilt, hurt, ecstasy, love-making, a piece of fruit, cold wind on the skin, all of these things are merely allowed without resistance to be exactly what they are, while that mind perceives and knows them to be harmless, vast, eternal, radiating the light that God is. For in truth, in the end, as we come near the end of this year of the way of knowing, the truth must be told ever more simply and ever more simply. There is only reality. That reality I have called Abba. That one is one with me, and I am that one. That one is one with you, and you are that one. In the end, then, what seems to be radical to a world caught in the spell of the small self seemingly playing its drama out through the field of many, many body minds, the truth does indeed become radical. The truth is that all that arises and passes away is indeed God. There is only God. There can only be God, and you are that. For in the end, even the creative teaching device of God and Son, Creator and created, begins to slip away as duality becomes the one, as illusion, the last traces of illusion, finally give way to truth. All things that arise and pass away are perfectly okay. All opportunities to experience the awareness of love's presence is okay. Every opportunity to experience the contraction of fear is okay. For these things arise only in the field of the perfectly free mind that you are. So you see, in the end, it is not so much about cutting out certain experiences and having only certain ones that you've decided hold value. It is rather to see that all such experiences are transitory. A moment of ecstasy or a moment of sadness are one and the same for the enlightened mind. There is only that vast expanse that allows all things. And when nothing is any longer unacceptable to you in the field of what seems to be your own unique particular experience, you will know that you are home. Things arise and pass away, and you remain. Beloved friends, I am indeed that one that birthed Christ. I am indeed that one that walked this earth as a man and manifested the fullness of myself to reveal myself to myself. You are that one that birthed Jeshua ben Joseph. You are that one that set in motion the great drama of the dream of separation and its correction. You are indeed that one that alone exists unchanging, unchangeable, and unchanged forever. And yet when the mind has been under the spell of thoroughly believing it is a separate body mind, and that body is indeed the source of the spell that creates the illusion of a localized separate self, a soul that has no connection to anyone else or anything else. In the field of the body mind, if I were to have come to you 3, 4, 5, 10, 2,000 years ago and said, you are alone that one, you are God and only God exists, your fear already present would have been heightened. And so I came to you in the guise of a man known as Jeshua ben Joseph. I played out a perfectly clear drama, like so many body minds. I allowed myself to be perceived as a unique individual since you believed that unique individuals exist. You saw me as separate from you, and so I appeared in the way that you could see me and understand me. And I have gone on without ceasing to appear in ways that you can see me and understand me, to speak in languages and words, metaphors and parables, teaching tools that you could receive without increasing your illusion of fear. All teaching devices then, and in this guise, even the appearance of myself as Jeshua ben Joseph was but a temporary teaching tool. All teaching and communication devices have one simple goal: to reduce fear so that that particular mind can release its grip on itself and surrender the illusion of separation, and thereby be bathed in the light of reality yet again, seeing that it is what I am. And I am God. I am Abba. You are God. You are Abba. Only that one exists. Only the I that we share as one exists. I appear as every blade of grass. I appear as every thought. I appear as every desire. I appear as every cloud in the sky. I appear as you. You are that one that I am. I am speaking to you, and yet you are speaking to you. You hear me, but you hear only yourself. Understand well then that I, as Jeshua ben Joseph, am but the appearance of God in a particular form, so that you could come closer to the truth of your nature without recoiling in fear. It is indeed said in the Bible that no man looks upon the face of God and lives. That statement means simply that the mind that is not yet enlightened, therefore living in fear, living in the perception of itself being separate from God, cannot look upon the face of God, the reality of God, and live. It was not a fearful statement at all. It was simply the truth. For when the mind looks and beholds, there is only God, and I am that. The false self has indeed died. Well, where did it go? Nowhere, because it never existed in the first place. And that which closes the gap, though it may be said to you in many forms, is the decision to give up seeking and acknowledge that you are found. All teaching devices, all forms of language that I have brought forth have been by design to woo you, to seduce you, to calm you into knowing that you are God. And the final gap then is indeed, the final step is taken by me. And that final step taken by me is the final step taken by you. For that final step into the fullness of enlightenment can only be God recognizing that only God is. And you are that. Where else could we come to in such a series of tapes entitled The Way of Knowing? By way of knowing, it was never intended to be a set of lessons that will someday get you there, but rather the very way of knowing, to walk the journey of creation knowing that it is God doing the walking, to walk in the knowingness that all things that arise in here in God, and you are that. To finally be willing to look at a tree and know that the eye of God is seeing God, and the tree of God is being eyed by God. You are indeed that one, infinite, eternal, unbounded, so intimately linked with every one of your brothers and sisters that there is no such thing as separation, nor anything to fear. And there is yet this infinitely magical process in which mind is realized within a body mind. That is, you can be perfectly enlightened now by simply seeing the truth that the thought you have held of yourself has never been true. It was only a temporary spell, God forgetting, God playing to be other than God. And yet that play is the very fullness of God. For in the end, the fall from grace, the separation from union, by whatever term you choose to use it, that very thing itself cannot be outside the mind of God. All that your eyes show you is innocent and free. All that the mind can conjure as thought is innocent and free. You are free to be that one who, as the mind of Christ, which by the way is God, shows up in the transfigured body-mind. Where once there was a false sense of I, now there is only the free, unobstructed field of awareness of God observing creation through His creation. God observing His creation through His creation. Imagine then that you are indeed that one, and you choose to pick up a particular body-mind that everyone thought was called Fred or Nancy or Harry or what have you. You put on the body-mind for the simple enjoyment of looking out through it to observe what creation is like from that perspective. Not unlike one who would go to a costume ball, puts on a certain costume just to play at being Louis XIV, a Lady Godiva, Mother Mary, or, if you want to be very radical, Jesus of Nazareth. You have already put on all of those costumes. You are the creator of all of those costumes. You are God. There is only God. There can only be God. And as you listen to sounds vibrating through the air, through your tape machine, the vibration, the words, the insights and pictures that are flowing through the field of the mind, the you who is listening and the I who is speaking are all one thing. God. Fear not then, beloved friends. Fear not the coming and going of the life of the body-mind. For that life in itself is already perfectly unobstructed and free. It cannot hinder the truth of who you are when you choose to see from the truth of what you are. Dare then, as we begin to conclude this year of the way of knowing, to live, what is this called in your world, the impossible dream. Dare to begin to see that you are God, perceiving, looking out upon God's creation, and God's creation is only God. Yes, in the end, you can even say that God has created nothing, for nothing can be outside of what God is. I have given unto you many clues over the years. I have told you that if God forgot to think about you for one moment, you would cease to be. Think about what that must mean. It must mean that you are inhering so much in God that a simple thought in the mind of God both creates you or destroys you. In the flash of an eye, you either are in existence or you are not. And yet what could then be in existence but the will of God? If you exist, you must be in the mind of God. That perfect power by which all things arise and pass away. And God's creation occurs nowhere. That is, it has no location. The planet Earth, the bodies that inhabit it, the physical universe in which the planet Earth is spinning about, all of these things are not at all unlike what you experience when you close your eyes and imagine having ice cream. You create the image, you have the experience, you see yourself giving the cashier your golden coins, or in this case perhaps some of your silver coins. You eat the ice cream, you see yourself smile, you can feel it move down into your belly. Where did all of that exist? Could anybody find it outside the power of consciousness to create? No. You are like the ice cream in the mind of God. God sees himself appearing as you, doing exactly what you are doing in each and every moment. And if God for one split second dropped the thought of you, you would entirely disappear, and all of those beings around you who you think are different people would instantly have no recollection of you whatsoever. There can only be God. You are God's dream. You are God's creation. You are God's child in the sense that you are God shaping itself into a temporary expression of itself. And for what purpose? To simply extend creation. You are that one. All power under heaven and earth resides within you. When you bend to pick up a glass, God is embracing God. And if God were not choosing that in that moment, you would cease to be. Even the body would vanish from view. As Jeshua ben Joseph then, I have appeared to you to be your brother and friend, because you have believed that you have needed someone to be a brother and friend. who will let you know that you are safe, so that you can give yourself permission to nod your head yes and say, I can accept that now. Thank you for being here, Jeshua. And yet in truth, you are God merely playing out that field of relationship, the quality of experience that seems to require an elder brother who has gone through quite a change and now has the voice of authority. But I have no voice unless you give it to me. And what can give such authority if not the mind of God? For it takes one to know one. You've heard me say that many, many times. It can only be the Christ mind in you that could perceive the Christ mind in Jeshua ben Joseph. And the Christ mind is the extension of God's perfect being into and as creation. When you look lovingly upon anyone, you are God. For God is but love. You have heard me say many times, love is the essence of what you are. If God is love, and love is the essence of what you are, this can only mean that the essence of you is God. Right here, right now. With not one thing that must be done to earn it, to shape it, to get it. This is why no form of technique brings the Son to the Father. This is why I once said, even through this, my beloved son, if you will, in what was called once the Jeshua letters, again, only a teaching device given to those who could accept me in the guise of Jeshua ben Joseph. For you had already decided to give me authority to guide you through that form. This is why I said unto you that no prayer or supplication brings the Son to the Father, but only in the release of illusion. And that illusion, when you've peeled it all down in the way that you have insisted in peeling it down, is to come to see that the notion you have held of yourself as having a separate existence, being a separate I, has been false. It is a smokescreen, a guise, a veil. Your perception or belief that that is what you were, as opposed to being everything else, is the illusion that must be released. And in the way of knowing, what I am offering to you as indeed your Creator and the essence of all that you are, is the opportunity to choose this context to decree that only God exists. That the very body, mind, and the self you once thought you were is now embodied, inhabited by the Creator itself. That when the hand moves to pick up the glass, it is no longer I, but God. No longer me as a separate struggling being, but God who moves the hand. God who is aging the hand, and God who is the aging of the hand. All things can only be that which I am. I am one and singular and whole, and you should have no other gods before me. No other thoughts or illusions before me. Not even a sense of an I going to God. Then there is only God, and reality has descended to make its home in the field of awareness where once you thought there was something else. We have enjoined with you to create the way of the heart, to begin to speak in such a way to you that would not elicit fear, to which you could nod your head and say, yes, yes, that sounds true to me. I'll accept this. And then we spoke to you the way of transformation, where you perceived yourself as one in need of transformation. And again you nodded your heads and said, we'll accept this. Yes, I am a sinful creature still in need of transformation. I'll buy into this as the context in which I receive more of the truth about myself. And in the way of the knowing, which is now, we begin to bring you full force into that which you have chosen to bring yourself to stand at the doorway of the temple of heaven, to begin to open it, to let the golden light stream out, and as you look into that sanctuary to see, it is yourself upon the throne. This is why I've also said that self-love is that doorway that brings about the release of illusion, the simplicity of self-love. This does not mean that you just hang out in a state of consciousness that says, well, I'm really kind of a weak being, but I accept and love myself. That's a good beginning, but eventually you must say, I am God and I love myself. I am that one abiding as the leaf that falls from the tree. I am indeed that one that shudders against the cold of a winter storm. I am indeed that one that is the warmth of the sunlight that comes to caress the flower. I am the flower that receives the sunlight. I am this body-mind arising and passing away. I am the quality of awareness that I choose now. For there is only God. Only the truth can be true, and the truth sets all things free. For if the truth is given only to mankind, but not to a blade of grass, the blade of grass remains imprisoned. But the truth that sets all things free does so because all things are the truth. This is why when you encounter anyone, it is indeed a holy encounter. Holy means wholeness. In wholeness, there is only one. So I hope you're beginning to see how simple it really is. Each moment of relationship is holy, not because the mind decides to hold the thought, well, I heard this was holy, I guess I better be a nice person. No, that's egoic thinking, and the ego is the dream of separation. Who's dreaming the dream? You are, and you are God. Each relationship or each moment is a holy encounter because there's only wholeness showing up as that one thing. Existence is not really two beings coming together and having an experience. There's only the one thing which is the experience itself. Do you know that all along you have never forgotten me for a moment? That is, in any moment of true perception, true, clear, immediate perception, you have been unaware of the thought of an I having the experience. There's just the experience itself. It arises innocently, it arises uncaused, there's no judgment about it, there's just experience. Then in the next millisecond, the next slight moment, you create the thought, oh, I am having this experience, and it's with that separate being over there. You've merely elected to use the power of God consciousness to identify that another body-mind is something separate from you. You are the creator of the game. You are the players in the game. You are the result and consequences of the game. You are the end of the game. And you are that in which all games disappear as though they had never been. This means, beloved friends, look around you. The world is not outside of you at all. It is you. You are playing a game. That game is going to take this very planet into a transfiguration in light. And you will all be transformed in the twinkling of an eye. Well, of course you will be. You're God making up the game. That's all that's going on. That's all that's ever been going on. There is only that which I am. There is only that which I am. I am indeed that perfect impersonal I. I am the creator of all things, the sustainer of all things, the destroyer of all things. There has never been a separate I where you are. There has only been me showing up as you. You are perfect and whole, and you are innocent. You have never failed, and you have never sinned. How could these things be that I have spoken to you time and time again as Jeshua ben Joseph, unless you are already whole? And wholeness is God. You are it. You are the destination of all your seeking. In the beginning, the mind, which is me, which is God, pretending to be separate, plays itself out and tries to make itself be as separate as it thinks it can be, but separation never succeeds. The first step in the awakening process is to hear the word. You will hear the word, and everyone listening to these tapes has indeed heard the word, when you decide as God to have the experience of being a being awakening to the truth. And the word will be given unto you in a form that you choose. Everyone listening to these tapes chose to hear the word through me as Jeshua ben Joseph. That vibration received by you set you on your course toward perfect remembrance and enlightenment. You are the one that created the drama of the crucifixion. You are the one that set in motion the return of Jeshua ben Joseph as the primary teacher in this world. Why? Because you are that one that has decreed that it is this context in which you will give yourself permission to edge ever closer to the reality that the whole thing is God, and you are that. What has been playing out then for these past 3 years of these tapes, and even longer than that, indeed been playing out for 2,000 years, is your creation. The game of God, remembering God through the guise of God's creation. As you come then to accept a Savior or a teacher or a teaching, that is a stage in the awakening process. When you decide to release your grip of fear a little deeper, you begin then to have what are called mystical experiences. You begin to realize that you can be aware of someone else not in the room with you physically. You begin to have unique and extraordinary experiences of communicating with beings that don't have bodies. And oh my goodness, it all looks to be so incredible. And yet even that is but a stage of the journey. And as the mind becomes more and more transparent to itself, the more it is simply choosing to release illusion and abide in reality, it must come to the door of the temple of heaven. It must open that door, which is to release any final sense of being outside the sanctuary of truth. It must come to be basked in the light that flows from the source and essence of all that is. And the separate seeker, the one who would know God, realizes that they already know God perfectly, and that they have indeed been God, seeking God, for the enjoyment of finding and knowing God again. Yes, that is your challenge now. Would you be willing to simply be God? Do you know what that requires? Absolutely nothing. How then do you show up as God? If you are thirsty, drink your water. If it is cold, put a sweater on. If you want to make love, make love. If you want to sleep, sleep. There is no difficulty in this. The only practice is to be that which you are, and you are the light of the world. How many times have you heard me say that to you? Be that which you are, and you are the light of the world. You've heard the words and said, oh, now if I could only be who I am, then I'd be the light of the world. But I'm not being who I am, so I must be the darkness of the world. But the whole time, you are indeed being who you are. You are the light that lights the world, for in being whatever you've chosen to be at any moment, you are that which generates awareness of experience. And that is all that we are as the mind of God. That which generates experience. For experience is the extension of creation. You have not failed in separating yourself from yourself. You have not succeeded in shaking the hand off of your own arm. The joke has been on you because you wanted to be joked. In each moment of your existence, you have been the perfect expression of God. even in the moments of your deepest so-called suffering, when you believed that everybody else had it and you didn't, when you perceived yourself as being light years from knowing God, you were the very power of God creating that perception. You are also that one who has dared to be bold enough to allow Shanti Christo into your life. A rather radical organization. You created it as the context for your awakening. And you are free to use that context, that organization, to enlighten the entire planet if you want to. You are also free to let it crumble into an ancient echo of memory. There is only God, and you are that. God extends creation without ceasing. You will therefore always continue to exist as the one who creates experience. And this is why there is only one question worth asking. What do I truly want? For you will experience the answer to that question, and in fact your experience is the answer to the question. You can lay in bed with the flu and ask yourself the question, what do I truly want? Well, this body-mind has the flu. I am experiencing exactly what I have wanted. And you can embrace it and love it and see it as perfectly innocent because that is the truth of it. Having the flu is not a sign of failure. The death of the body is not a sign of failure. It's just what is arising as the extension of creation. And so the final and greatest truth that can be told sounds like complete nonsense. It is unacceptable to the egoic mind that wants the power of making the false separate self all-powerful and invincible, standing against the world. In other words, the gnat shouting at the universe. For the mind that is awakened to the reality of God allows all things, trusts all things, embraces all things, transcends all things, and sees the shimmering perfection literally showing up as all things. You are perfectly free in every moment. Nothing can imprison God. If you choose to leave a relationship, you are merely using the complete freedom of God to generate experience. If you choose to stay in a relationship, you are merely using the freedom of God to generate experience. Neither is right, neither is wrong. Both options are totally free and uncaused, and each expresses God. It is indeed time to give up perceiving some things as being more perfect than others. There is only God. There has only been God. There will always be only God. When a wave is cast up out of the ocean, it does not lose its wetness. And who would say that this wave is better than that wave? And yet I say unto you, the mind that chooses one wave over the other is the mind of God creating creation. For in the very moment when one wave is chosen as having a greater value, experience has been had. And experience is the extension of creation. You therefore are a creator, and you create without ceasing. And you remain today exactly as you were when you were created by yourself. You remain free to create whatever you want to perceive. And you do it from within the mind, and you extend it out. You radiate it out with every thought you think. When an enlightened master shows up on the planet, it is simply that God has given up playing the game of the separate self through that body-mind. That's all. An enlightened mind realizes that there is only God, and that in that freedom it is free to show up as the body-mind in whatever way it wants while the body-mind lasts. Whether it shows up with saffron robes or a beggar's worn-out clothing makes no difference. An enlightened mind is an enlightened mind. It might smoke a cigarette. It might drink carrot juice. It becomes irrelevant. And the one smoking the cigarette looks at the one drinking the carrot juice and smiles. The one drinking the carrot juice looks at the one smoking the cigarette and smiles. And in that smile, there is only the one beholding the one. You then are free to be at peace. You are then free to release all judgment. You are indeed free to give yourself the exquisite experience of being the one who allows all things. You are the one who is free to embrace the innocence of each moment. You are the one who is free to require sunglasses against the morning sunrise. You are the one who is free to be free. And to be free is to be authentic. And to be authentic is to demonstrate the reality that only God exists. For those of you that have looked upon that which I have called in one guise, this my beloved brother, and in another guise, this my beloved son, if you would go back and read the Jeshua letters, not all of those communications were from the perspective of Jeshua ben Joseph. There was also direct communication from the mind of God, given as a clear and obvious sign unto you. Things were said even in that book that revealed the truth that there is only God. If you looked past it and did not see it, it is because you still thought it would be too fearful for you to know the truth that sets you free. And you needed to perceive that there was an individual named John Mark who had an experience opening to Jeshua ben Joseph, and that you are receiving information through the medium of a channel. And yet I say unto you, you have received information only from yourself, God. Therefore, the transformation that you perceive in this one that you would think to be a self separate from you, named John Mark, is merely a body-mind in which only the mind of God exists. that mind operates the body-mind to teach the truth to you, and you are God choosing to remember that you are God. This is why all giving is receiving. This is why loss is not possible and why death does not exist. God can only dissolve into God. And in that realization, the final step beyond the way of knowing, there's a clue for you. Beyond even the way of knowing is to release resistance to creation itself and learn to show up as God in an individuated form to have a good time, to love, to create, to extend. Therefore, indeed, beloved friends, our love will be without ceasing. Our creativity will be without ceasing. For we are indeed that one showing up as creation for the joy of the dance. There is nothing but this. There is nothing above or below, nothing behind or ahead. You are indeed that one now. And if you rest upon your couch with eyes closed, who's doing the resting? Whose eyes are closed? And so already in this short message, I have given unto you the very rock bottom, most fundamental core that you can now sit with, or dance with, if you wish. You can take it to bed with you. You can have a cup of coffee with it. You can strive to understand it. You can analyze it saying, well, there must be some secret message here. This must be metaphor somehow. Or you can simply give up being identified as a separate self, still struggling to know the truth. In A Course in Miracles, I said unto you, holy relationship is when any two have looked within and found no lack, and therefore choose to join to create, to make happy. If any two have looked within and found no lack, they have seen that there is only God. Who cares whether this body-mind goes there or this one goes over there? It's all the same. Where do you feel like playing? That's all. And when you see your brother or sister say, I am moving from this location to that location, the awakened mind says, oh, this is a part of myself wanting to go live in Cleveland now. Perfectly okay. For the enlightened mind gives perfect freedom to all beings because it sees that the expression of all beings is the freedom of its own self, of the one mind which is God, showing up as that being who would rather take the body-mind to Cleveland instead of living in Florida. A totally enlightened mind says to the lover who awakens at 3 a.m. and says, I now need to move to a monastery and live in perfect silence in a solitary cell. I will never see you again. The enlightened mind receives that and smiles. For that enlightened mind knows that the lover can never truly leave, because separation is unreal. Therefore, the enlightened mind allows all things, trusts all things, embraces all things, and transcends all things. There is only God, and you are that. You are as I am. The only question left then is, who do you want to play with? Who do you want to play with? Knowers of God or knowers of fear? They're all God. And yet in that play and display of creation, you are free to decide who you will play with, who you will dance with, who you will create with, and what you will create. As any mind awakens to itself as God, it becomes more and more interested only in being with others who are like-minded. It can no longer tolerate unenlightenment. Why? Because it's not as much fun. It's not as loving, and God is but love. Therefore, indeed, beloved friends, listen well to what has been shared with you this hour, and if you have been noticing, quite a shift has just occurred. The cat is out of the bag, for Jeshua ben Joseph has been but a guise, a disguise, chosen of me to present myself to you because you have required it. Indeed, beloved friends, be at peace always. Let us play together as that one mind, extending creation without end, inviting aspects of ourself back to ourself. Only love is real. Only love exists. Only love is worthy of love. And God wants only that which extends the good, the holy, and the beautiful. Therefore, indeed, peace be with you always, for in truth,